How you doing? And welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel, whichever it may be. Today I'm having a look at the Sideshow Collectibles Skiff Guard version of Lando Calrissian. A few years old now at this stage, came out in 2021 if my memory serves me correctly. On the front of the box we have an image of Lando with the helmeted sculpt on. For anybody who knows the figure knows, for obvious reasons, because the non-helmeted sculpt is pretty bad. On the side, not much, and then on the back we have another image of the figure with the helmeted sculpt on. And then if I just take the front of the cover off, and while I do that, I would ask you to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And on the inside we have a card there with the non-helmeted sculpt on, which, as you can see there, isn't great at all. So there we have it for the Lando Calrissian box. So let's move on and give the figure a quick pan. So just a quick pan of Skiff Guard Lando before we get into the accessories and the figure itself. And just some facts about Lando before we get into the details. And most of this information comes from Star Wars Legends, the book Last Shot, and the comic Double or Nothing. Born on the planet Sakaro, at the age of 27, he acquired the YT-1300 freighter ship, otherwise known as the Millennium Falcon, by winning a hand in the game of Sabacc. After he acquired the Millennium Falcon, he hired Han Solo to fly the Falcon and to teach him how to fly, because he wasn't a pilot at the time. And the reason why there's tension between Solo and Calrissian in Bespin in The Empire Strikes Back, and says, "You slimy, double-crossing, no-good swindler," is because Calrissian assisted Han Solo in an attack on the Hutts with the rebels. And after the mission was successful, Solo was promised a share of the loot, the profits that was acquired by the rebels. But he ended up being double-crossed by the rebel who led the attack, by the name of Darren, who he was in a love affair with, let's say. So the rebels gave him nothing, so therefore he had nothing to give Lando, and Lando felt as if he'd been double crossed. He felt like Han Solo was involved in the double cross, so he had some issues with Han. He felt like he'd been ripped off. He felt Han Solo had a share and just didn't give Lando any. So they did have a fallout until they met again in Empire Strikes Back at Bespin, and all seemed to be forgiven. But as we know from Empire Strikes Back, that Lando does end up double crossing Han Solo, and then feels bad about it, and then helps to get Leia, Chewbacca, C-3PO, R2-D2 and Luke Skywalker off Bespin using the Millennium Falcon. And then later in Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, he infiltrates Jabba's palace to help free Han Solo, and then becomes an active member in the Rebel Alliance. And as we all know, again, from Return of the Jedi, he leads the attack on the Death Star 2 and helps destroy the Death Star 2. So that's a few facts about Lando Calrissian. There is way more. If you want to know more, I'd suggest you read the book Last Shot or the comic Double or Nothing. So, as I said, there we are for Lando. So, moving on, let's have a look at the accessories. And here we are for all of the accessories that come with Lando Calrissian Skiff Guard version. And starting off, we'll have a look at his BD1 cutter, or vibro axe, or force pike, or vibro pike. And you can see it is quite well detailed. It's not fantastic, but it's quite well detailed. A bit of speckling on the bladed part there. You can see the details of how it's attached on there, this little nub here. And there is a shimmer off the bladed part of it, the sharp part of it, which all looks fairly decent. And we have all these details here of all these little rods running up and down it and all connected in, and as I said, a bit of speckling on the bladed part, and it's long enough. I think it's accurate to the movie. There is a bit of length to it. And as we walk down there, and hopefully I can get a bit more focused, It does have the bit of detail at the end and a bit of a dry brush on the end of it there as well to make it look a bit worn and weathered. So yeah, it's fairly decent. I'm quite happy with it, quite pleased with it. And as I said, looks the part. And I'm pleased that we have it, as it's an essential accessory for Skiff Guard Lando to have. Then we have 7 hands in total. We have 2 gripping hands, we have 2 closed fists, 2 relaxed palms, and a trigger hand. Now, something I will mention about the hands, they are painted reasonably well. They're nothing outrageous. It is an old kind of sculpt, but there's no flex in them. So trying to get the rod into his hand is very difficult to get into his hand. It's closed too tight. There's a risk of taking paint off on the thumb, which I've mentioned in previous Sideshow Collectibles figures reviews, where the hands just don't grip without the risk of rubbing paint off on them. So it is a common issue with them. The hands are okay. They'll do the job. Then we have Lando's DL-18 blaster. Now, when I done the review for Labria not long ago, I knew I'd seen the blaster before, and I couldn't for the life of me remember where I'd seen it or what it was called. But this is the identical blaster to the Labria figure from the Scum and Villainy collection. Exactly like the Labria one, a bit of dry brushing on this section here and down the end, and this nice looking wooden grip on it. And again, some more wash around the sides and at the end, and looks the part, and I'm again quite pleased with it, no issues. Then we have his other head sculpt that comes with him in the box, which we will have a look at on the figure a bit later on. Absolutely fantastic, really well done, really well detailed, and it does hide that hideous head sculpt that we have with him. So, this is the way I'd be posing this figure, and probably how most people have posed him, given how bad that the sculpt is. So there we have it for Lando's accessories. Let's move on and have a look at the figure itself. And here we are for the Skiff Guard Lando, pretty much straight up as he comes out of the box. And I am not even going to go there with the base. Anybody who's seen my reviews before knows how I feel about those Sideshow bases. So let's start off from bottom to top with Lando's footwear or his sandals. And you can see that they are a sandal. They're not bad detail on them. There's a bit of relief in them there, as you can see, to make it look like there is actually a foot put into the sandal. It's not just one mold. Nice bit of weathering on the front of them as well. It looks fairly decent. Bit of scuffing and weathering on them. And there is a molded grip on the bottom of them there, which I suppose looks the part. And it is a foot put into a sandal there, and it does look fairly decent. There's a bit of relief around them. It does actually look like 2 separate pieces. And because it's split there with the shin guards, there is a bit of articulation there. But if you do over articulate it, you do get a little bit of a gap there, a bit of a hideous gap. But I don't think anybody's going to be posing them that dynamically anyway. The shin gauntlets, they're not hard plastic. They're like a soft plastic, which again seems to be on point. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more weathering in them. There is a little bit. You can see there's a wash running down the creases to separate the sections. And on the buckle there as well, there's a bit of a wash in there to make it look a bit old and worn. And even on the separation on the straps, there's a bit of a wash running through them, which I'm quite pleased about. The trousers, unfortunately, are a different story. They're absolutely spotless, which is a little bit of a letdown. There should definitely be a bit of weathering on these trousers. If they're going to go as far as weather the likes of the buckles and that, I don't understand why they didn't weather the trousers and make them look a bit scruffy. It's not like Jabba's palace was immaculately clean or anything. He would have picked up a bit of dirt and grime. Not a bad material, a little bit cheaper than what they do these days, but it suffices. Then we have this loincloth, I suppose you'd call it, at the front. and it is like paper. It's like paper. It is a pleather, but it's really so thin and like a piece of paper and a bit rigid. I hope it holds up over the years. It wouldn't be difficult to replace. I'd just rather not have it happen. And then moving up to his belt, same thing with his belt. It is a pleather belt, and I do hope it holds up. It has so far in the box. This was brand new. I bought this figure brand new. The holster seems a bit oversized. The stitching in it is absolutely terrible. Not a fan of the stitching at all. It's oversized. It stands out a bit too much. Not great stitching on the holster at all, and that is pleather as well. And it's, like I said, it just seems a little bit oversized, but it is what it is. Plastic buckle on the belt, which is no surprise. And then on the back we have some more of that loincloth material, that same kind of paperish pleather. And there is a bit of weathering through it. You can see where the colour kind of changes, the tones change, and there's a grain running through it as well. I just don't understand why they'd weather all that and weather the boots and not weather the trousers. I don't know. Sometimes they make some poor decisions. You can see he has an upper belt there, or a second belt on him, attaches by Velcro at the back, and it comes all the way around. And behind that we have this, it's like another soft goods type of belt, which is attached at the back here, which matches his top that he's wearing there. So there are a few layers to him. Again, this belt here, this brown belt here, is pleather and would be very difficult to replace if it disintegrates. So again, let's hope it doesn't. And then moving up, we have, as I said, he has this dark brown tunic on, I suppose you'd call it, sleeveless top on there, and the belt matches that. This belt here matches it. And then he has his armour on, and the armour, you can see there's a kind of a reflection off it. The light catches it really well. There's so many different tones in it and hues, and you can see in the centre there's some deep blues, and then it starts to come out this kind of bronzy tarnished kind of look to it, and then some lighter blues, and then out into this brownish kind of colour, which makes it look really good. It is one plastic piece, but it looks really good, especially when the light hits off it and bounces off it. It looks really nice. And the same with his shoulder armour. Same process, where it has this tarnished effect to it. It looks like hammered metal. It looks like it's been hammered into shape, which looks really good. And it's held on with this rope, this real rope. It's not rubber, it's not mold, it's a real rope that's tied off at the back, just tied off at the back there, and really looks the part. And then moving up, we have these straps, pleather straps again. This one here seems to be a little bit looser. I think it all needs adjusting a little bit. Pleather straps with these black notches on them, which again look the part. They look good. There's a nice grain through them, but unfortunately it is pleather. There's a lot of pleather on this guy, which it's a little bit dangerous to have, I suppose. A bit of a risk of getting such an old figure. Like I said, I bought it brand new, and obviously the box had never been opened before, so I wasn't sure what I was gonna be faced with when I opened him up. He's been sitting in the box since 2021, so a bit of a risk. You can see on this shoulder armour plate here, if I can get it to focus, it's not the same. It's not just a clone of the other side. This side is far more tarnished than this side here, and I really like that. I like the difference in them. I'm having trouble focusing here. It keeps trying to lock onto his face, but it does look different and looks very good. I really like how this plastic is painted, and you can see all the separate sections of it there where it's all attached. It's made to look like pieces of metal, separate pieces of metal that are all bolted in and put together. So yeah, really, really chuffed with how the armour looks at the front. Unfortunately, this strap here, I'm not going to take it off. I have plugged it in, and anybody who has a keen eye would have spotted it disconnected on the pan that I done. it just keeps disconnecting every time I raise his arms, and there is a little notch to put it back in. And underneath it all, he has all this black kind of long-sleeved linen top. It's like a linen, and it flows quite nicely. It's quite nice and light. And then he has his looks like hammered metal gauntlet on there with some tarnishing in it again, and some blues in it, and some nice hues, and you can see where it's supposed to be bolted in there or buckled up, which really looks the part. Quite pleased, quite impressed with the overall body and the way things have been put together and the proportions, and how, you know, it, especially for a figure that was made in 2021, probably manufactured in 2020 and distributed in 2021. So let's get it all a bit closer, and we'll take a look at these two head sculpts. We'll have a look at this head sculpt first. No, yeah, we'll have a look at this head sculpt first, and let's get into the details. So here we are with the Lando Calrissian head sculpt by Sideshow, or maybe Lando Calrissian's second cousin by the looks of this head sculpt. It doesn't quite look like Billy Dee Williams, and I think most of you will agree with me there. And as I mentioned, or did I mention, on the inside of the eye, there is a little bit of mold or something where it's gone a little bit pale. It's gone a bit white on the inside of the eye, and I've tried to clean it off, and it just won't budge. It won't move. It's a little bit off-putting. Not that I'll be using this head sculpt. It hasn't upset me too much, because I'm absolutely positive will not be using this head sculpt anyway, so it's not a big deal for me. You can kind of tell who it's supposed to be if you're a Star Wars fan. The colour contrast between the neck and the head sculpt isn't great either. You can see there's quite a difference between the neck and the head sculpt. But if you're a Star Wars fan with the outfit on and all, you know who exactly it is. But unfortunately, it just doesn't look like Billy Dee Williams as Lando Calrissian. As I said, it's gone a bit mouldy, even on the top of the head there. I'm not sure if the camera's picking up on that, but there is some whitish kind of residue that is grown on it, and I've tried to clean it off again, and it won't budge. Every time I wipe it down and try and clean it, it just dries back white. So I think if I want to fix that, I'd have to run a bit of black paint through his hair, and thankfully it is just a big blob of black paint. There's no dry brushing or wash put through it. Unfortunately, I can't do the inside of the eye because I'm not repainting the whole sculpt. As I said, the neck, this is rubber, this piece here. It's not a plastic mold, and it is a little bit darker than the head sculpt, unfortunately. Again, for me, it's not a huge deal because I will not be using this head sculpt anyway, so I'm not really that upset about it. And it just doesn't look like him at all. Like, I just can't get over how did Sideshow look at this and go, yeah, let's put that out because it looks like Billy Dee Williams. I did consider putting the hottoys head sculpt on it, but it has a neck connected to it, the hottoys Lando Calrissian head sculpt, so there is no change in the head sculpts over. Unfortunately, I would have liked to have gotten a hottoys head sculpt and done that, but it's not possible. The hair isn't, it's typical Sideshow hair when they mold it, in the sense that it's not individual strands, it's just all chunky and looks like a big blob of plastic, and it's a bit rough. But given the character that it is, it kind of does the job. I like the way it's brushed back at the sides, and you know, it's I've seen worse from Sideshow, let's put it that way. I've seen worse. So moving on, let's have a look at the sculpted, or the helmeted sculpt, should I say, and take a look at the details on that. Now, this is why I got this figure, for this exact look. I think if it didn't come with this helmet on him, it would be a fail, an ultimate fail of a figure, and nobody would have bought it. Actually, I have marked up the neck there, as you can see. Putting the sculpt on, by twisting the sculpt on, I've actually marked up the neck, which is a bit of a shame. A little bit disappointed in that. That will rub off. I'll give that a clean a bit later with a cotton bud, and that should wipe off. And there we go for that strap that I'd mentioned earlier on. It just keeps coming loose and has a little hole in the strap there, as you can see. And there's a little knob on the back there for it to go into. But every time I move the figure slightly, it just comes out. I was considering putting a bit of glue on it, but if I put a bit of glue on it and the material does deteriorate, then it's going to be a bit of a nuisance to get it off again. So I'll just have to leave it the way it is for now. So here we are for this sculpt, and it looks really accurate. I'm quite pleased with it. You can see, if I just lift the head up a little bit more, you can see the eyes in there, or at least one of the eyes. You can see them in there, just like kind of when you're first introduced to Lando in Jabba's palace. You just see a close-up of his eyes coming through the helmet, which looks great. I really like the bones, the way the bones are sculpted on it, and the paintwork that's done on this strap here is done really well, in the sense that it's a bit of an orangey kind of crimsony kind of colour, and it fades out, and it's got a bit of texture to it and a bit of speckling. It's not just a flat surface, you know. It does look like a piece of material, and the colour change is done really well. And the mouth guard has a little bit of weathering on it as well, and there's a couple of different tones of greens running through it. Looks really good. I really like this helmet sculpt. It's done really well. Moving around to the back of it, if I can just get him to sit up straight there a bit, you can see that this piece here that's supposed to be metal is painted exceptionally well. You can see that there is a bit of kind of scuffing done to it, a little bit of dry brushing run through the edges of it to make it look like it's a helmet that's been thrown around the place or seen some action, which looks really good. These rivets are done really well, and you can just see on the edges of it there where there's this kind of weathered effect through it, and the same with the metal piece at the top as well. You can see there that it has some dry brush kind of scuffing effects done to it, and it really looks well. All of these pieces here are separate as well. This piece at the front is a separate piece, and the sides of it there are a separate piece as well that's glued on, just to give it some depth and some separation. And then we have the top half of it there, which I think it's supposed to be like a leather covering over it or something. It's got this leathery texture to it to make it look like a textured material. And the strap across the front of it there with the studs on it looks really good. You can see the wash that's put through the top of it there as well, there all through the grooves, to make it look worn and used, and looks really good. I'm quite pleased with this sculpt, this helmet sculpt. I'm really pleased with it. No complaints whatsoever, to be honest, especially for such an old figure at this stage. Not extremely old, not very old like some of the other figures I have, but still considered an old enough figure, and not too many people talking about this figure anymore. Bit of a forgotten figure, and maybe Hot Toys will end up doing one. I could see Hot Toys doing one, and if Hot Toys do, then I'll have a helmeted version and a non-helmeted version, because Hot Toys will do a better head sculpt. And there we go for the head sculpt. And lastly, I almost forgot, but let's go through the body. As I mentioned before, Sideshow bodies aren't great, but this body here is one of the better ones. Even though it's such an old figure, it is not a bad body whatsoever. All the joints are quite stiff on it. The knee joints are quite stiff. The arms are quite stiff. The elbows, the wrist pegs are a little bit loose. I'll say that. The wrist pegs are a little bit loose. But apart from that, I have no issues whatsoever with this 2020 body. It's one of their better ones. So it kind of goes to show you how it's hit and miss with the Sideshow Collectibles bodies. So no complaints with that body. No complaints whatsoever. So there we have it for the Sideshow Collectibles Lando Calrissian Skiff Guard. If you did like the video, please don't hesitate to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel out and spreads the videos around. And I'm going to put this guy in my Sideshow Collectibles figures playlist. and I'm going to put them in my Forgotten Figures playlist as well. So why don't you head over to the channel and take a look at those. I'm going to put a card in the corner and a link in the description for those two playlists. So there we have it. If you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.